Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ilman nafi'a wa rizqan tayyiba wa amalan mutaqabbala. Allahumma faqihna fid din wa 'allimna at-ta'wil ya Rabbil alameen. So yesterday we talked about how to pray the Janazah Salah and also what we should do in special cases when there are certain cases of a death that the body is for example, is burnt and we're afraid to use water, or if the body is afflicted with a disease and we're afraid to wash it, what do we do in that case? Or if a man dies amongst a bunch of women, or a woman dies amongst a bunch of men, do they wash it or not? And we said that in these cases we do tayammum on the body instead of washing it. Right? We also mentioned that yesterday that for the martyr, the one that dies in battle, he is not washed. He is not washed. He's taken the same clothing that he has, and he's wrapped in his same garments, and he's put into the grave, and all of his iron and all of his shield and leather that he has on from battle, if he has any armor, is taken off of him. He's put in his regular clothing, and he is like that. He is left in the grave like that, and there's no salah for him. There is no salah for him. And we also talked about the person that dies in the state of ihram. He's washed with water that is mixed with cedar leaves, and that is all that he's washed with. Perfume is not applied to his clothing or his skin or anything around him, because he is in the state of ihram. And when a person is in the state of ihram making hajj or umrah, they are not allowed to use perfume or any scented scents, basically perfume scents, while it's in the state of ihram. Also, the other guidelines and rules when a person's in a state of ihram are applied to him, even though he is dead or deceased. So we do not take from his hair or from his nails, or we do not cover his head when we bury him. Now the author, rahimahullah, may Allah have mercy upon him, Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi, he goes on and he is going to talk about the burial and how the burial takes place. So we talked about what happens at the time of death, what a person does. We talked about washing the body. We talked about the actual prayer, the Janazah Salah on the dead person. And we talked about special cases where we're not able to wash the body. And now we're going to talk about the fiqh rulings on putting the body in the actual grave and how it is done. He says, rahimahullah, وَيُسْتَحَبُّ دَفْنُ الْمَيِّتِ فِي لَحْدٍ وَيُنْصَبُ عَلَيْهِ اللَّبِنُ نَصْبًا كَمَا فُعِلَ بِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. He said it is preferable to bury the dead in a lahd. So a lahd is a special type of grave which has an L shape to it, and it has it faces the Qibla. So normally the graves here in North America, when we dig a grave, we'll dig 6 feet under, and we'll put the body in just like that. However, a lahd is a grave that they do in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, in other countries, Muslim countries, where they dig the grave and then they also dig a little bit of an L shape. So they dig it down and they dig it with an L shape, facing the Qibla. So this is facing the Qibla, and they put the body in there, and then they block the body up with some stones, right? And they kind of lock the body in there, right? So that is the preferable way to bury the dead. However, notice here, right? The fuqaha, when they speak with very detailed words. He said mustahab, yustahab, meaning that it is permissible to bury in a normal grave, the ones that we do here. But it's more preferred to use the lahd, the L-shaped grave, while facing the Qibla. So he says, and build a partition of unbaked bricks, as was done for the Prophet ﷺ. So these bricks, which we put, should not be touched by fire, right? These bricks, there's specific bricks like clay bricks, but they shouldn't be baked, right? And these are the bricks that you block off the body with. Once they're in that lahd and they're facing the Qibla, they're facing the Kaaba, the direction of the Kaaba. So he says here, rahimahullah, he goes on to say, وَلَا يُدْخِلُ الْقَبَرَ آجُرًا وَلَا خَشَبًا وَلَا شَيْئًا مَسَّتْهُ النَّارِ. And he should not allow into the grave anything that has been baked, or any wood, or anything that has been touched by fire. Then he, rahimahullah, he goes on to say, وَيُسْتَحَبُّ تَعْزِيَةُ أَهْلِ الْمَيِّتِ. And it is preferred, or it is mustahab, it is recommended to console the relatives of the one that has passed away, the deceased. وَالْبُكَاءُ غَيْرُ مَكْرُوهٍ إِذَا لَمْ يَكُنْ مَعَهُ ندب وَلَا نِيَاحَةٌ. And then he says that crying for the dead, for a person that passed away, is not makruh, or it's not makruh, meaning it's permissible, as long as there is nothing that is associated with nadb, which is eulogizing or wailing. So a person that's excessively crying, where they change their entire appearance, or they're wailing, this is what is prohibited in Islam. However, it's natural for a person to cry when someone close to him passes away, and this is not something that we try to suppress or forbid, right? This is something that's natural, and it's allowed for a person to cry when one of his relatives pass away, but we should do so in moderation and not go excessive, like wailing and going out of control, and the likewise. Then he, rahimahumullah, he says, so now we talk about gathering to console the family of the deceased, right? The scholars have said that it is recommended, so all of the scholars have recommended consoling the family for the deceased, for those who came across them at the mosque, at the market, or any other place. As for gathering at a certain place to extend condolences to them, the scholars have differed. Some of them have said it is makruh. Some of them have said as far as saying that it is haram, right? There is also an athar from Abdullah al-Bajali. He says that كنا نعد الاجتماع إلى أهل الميت. He says we used to consider the gathering of the family, or we used to consider gathering with the family of the deceased and making food after the burial as a part of wailing. So he said that they used to do this, right? So that is why some of the scholars perhaps have criticized it, or have not recommended it. However, it is permissible, and it is something from the Sunnah to console those that have passed away, the families that have passed away. And also, it is also mentioned in the Sunnah that you help, the family, the very close family that's related, by making food for them, because that day they would probably be very busy, right? They'll be very busy. So if you could make some food for them, that is also recommended from the Sunnah. The author, rahimahullah, he goes on to say, and now he's going to talk about the etiquette of visiting the graves. He says, وَلَا بَأْسَ بِزِيَارَةِ الْقُبُورِ لِلرِّجَالِ وَيَقُولُ إِذَا مَرَّ بِهَا أَوْ زَارَهَا سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ دَارَ قَوْمٍ مُؤْمِنِينَ وَإِنَّا إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ بِكُمْ لاحقون اللهم لا تحرمنا أجرهم ولا تفتنا بعدهم واغفر لنا ولهم نسأل الله لنا ولكم العافية. So he says, rahimahullah, he says that there is no harm for men visiting the graves. Now, this mas'ala of visiting the graves, the scholars have differed over it. So it is permissible. It is by consensus, by agreement of all the scholars, that men are allowed to visit the graves. However, for women, there is a difference of opinion amongst these scholars, and the two opinions are that it is makruh for women to visit the grave, and the other opinion is that it is haram. It is not permissible for visiting the graves. However, what seems to be the most correct opinion for women is that it is permissible, or it is disliked for them to visit. So if they visit it, inshallah, it is not haram for them to visit. However, they should visit. When they visit the graves, they should do so with the correct etiquette. Right? You should do so with the correct etiquette for men and women. Now, he says, when you visit the grave, a person should say, one should say while passing by the grave, and he mentioned the dua that we mentioned here, and I will translate it. Peace be upon you, dwellers of an abode of believing folk. Inshallah, we will follow you. So you're making dua for peace upon them and informing them that you will be following them as well. And you make a dua, oh Allah, do not deprive us from their reward, or misguide us through trials after them, and forgive us and them. We ask Allah for safety for us and for you. Then he, rahimahullah, he goes on, and this is the end of the chapter, and he talks about doing deeds on behalf of those that are deceased, and what is the ruling for that. So he says, rahimahullah, وَأَيُّ قُرْبَةٍ فَعَلَهَا وَجَعَلَ ثَوَابَهَا لِلْمَيِّتِ الْمُسْلِمِ نَفَعَهُ ذَلِكَ. So he says that any good deeds that the living person does while intending the reward for the deceased will benefit him, right? Will benefit him. So the scholars, rahimahullah, some of them, there are also two opinions on this mas'ala. If a person does a reward, for example, he prays, or he gives sadaqah, or he fasts, or he does something on behalf of a person that has passed away, does it benefit him or not? And there are two opinions. One of the opinions is that it does not benefit the mayyit, the person that has passed away. The other opinion is that it does benefit them, and there are some evidences for this. And this seems to be the most correct opinion. Wallahu a'lam. There are hadith such as the Prophet ﷺ telling us that to fast on behalf of the person that had made the oath for fasting, the person that had fast, he promised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he would fast, and he passes away, right? فَصُومُوا, he says to fast on behalf of him, right? For his relatives to do so, right? Also, a person that has made the oath to make hajj, right? The Prophet ﷺ commanded us to make hajj for that person, right? So there are many evidences which show also sadaqah on behalf of your, a deceased person, it can benefit him. Wallahu a'lam. So there are many evidences for that. Wallahu a'lam. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. And we'll finish with this inshallah. Tomorrow we will start the chapter of Zakat, Kitab al-Zakat. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.